What is up, you guys? Johnny here, back again with another video. Today I have a little bit of a different video. I usually do like Madden gaming videos and all of that stuff. It is sports related, but it's more of like a story video. As you guys know, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Jose Fernandez, and I was kind of contemplating whether I was gonna do this video or not do this video, because it's kind of a personal story. But I finally decided that I want to do it. I want to tell my story, tell what happened. So as you guys know, about a year ago I attended the public viewing of Jose Fernandez. Actually, it was near the high school I was attending at the time. It was literally right next to the high school I was attending. And so what I did was, after school, I went into the bathroom stall, changed into this jersey, my custom Jose Fernandez All-Star jersey. I actually got this custom made. A guy here in Miami got it custom made for me, and I just walked over there, sat in front of the church for about an hour or two, waiting for the casket to arrive. And well, at the same time, I was being interviewed by medias. Spanish. As you guys know, I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish and English perfectly. So I was being interviewed in Spanish and in English. So that was kind of cool, I guess, because I got to tell my stories of how I met Jose, and all the times that I saw him in person, whether it be at the stadium or at spring training or stuff like that. So I was standing there for about an hour or two in front of the church. Actually, my school had early release that day because they knew it was such a big event and a lot of people were going to go and all of that. So in order for the parents to beat out the traffic and all of that, they released early. So yeah, I got to go there about an hour or two before the whole thing started. So I was just there, fans started coming in, so I started talking to some of the fans that were there. And I started talking to them about baseball, the legacy that Jose left. Stuff like that. While at the same time, media members were coming up to me left and right trying to interview me. Then the casket finally arrives. I believe it was like at 3:30 maybe, I'm not too sure. Casket arrives with all the cars and all of that stuff, with police escort. Now, there was actually a line forming in front of the church, but at the time that the casket arrived, I was actually in the process of being interviewed. So the police was telling people to go to the line, like, because the people that were in the grass area or whatever that weren't media members, they were telling them to go to the line that was forming up in the sidewalk of the church. But one of the media members that was interviewing me told the police, no, he's with us for now. So after they finished interviewing me, they're like, all right, go to the line. So I went to the line or whatever. So I stood there for about another 30 minutes in line, and just waiting for them to get everything set up, and for, I believe, the family members to see Jose, in private before us. And funny thing is, the deacon of my school / church was there, so I got to say hi to him and everything. Actually, he also was in attendance for the private mass that was only for the Marlins. So yeah, that was pretty cool to see him there. And he obviously expected me to be there because he knew I was a big sports fan, big Marlins fan. So he kind of expected me to be there. So I finally get in the church. They finally started letting the people in, and it was closed casket, obviously. So I said a couple parting words. The family was there, off to the right hand corner of the church, kind of like in a little corner there, just sitting there. And I saw his mom, and she was just devastated, man. It was awful. So I said my parting words, and then I went on my way. So this is where things start to take a turn. The guy I was in front of in line, older Cuban gentleman, I believe he was also a music producer, if I'm not mistaken. He gave me his card, I remember. I think he was like some sort of music producer, some sort of sports agent, something like that. So I get out of the church. I'd already seen the casket and all that, and he did too. And I told him, man, I have a letter that I wrote about Jose. And it was basically, I was in my English class that day in school, and my mind started wandering off And I started thinking about Jose, and you know, I decided in the middle of class, just because we had iPads in our school, so just type everything I wanted to tell him if he was here, if he was standing right in front of me right now. So I did that. I printed it, and then I read it to the guy, and then I'm like, man, it would be absolutely crazy if I can read it to his mom. I know that won't happen because Marlin security won't let me, but it'd be dope if I could. And just to let you guys know, I was actually alone during this. My parents were at work. My parents were working at the time, so I was just there alone, just by myself. Don't get me wrong, I couldn't take care of myself and all that at this point. I'm 18 years old, but I was just by myself, like I didn't know anybody. So I read this gentleman the letter, and he goes to me and he's like, alright, I'll be right back, stay right here. I'm like, okay. So he leaves, and I'm standing in front of the grass of the church, talking to some of the media members as well. And I remember talking to Pedro Gomez. He was a journalist for ESPN, and funny thing about him, fun fact about him, his wife actually attended the same high school as me. So we kind of had a little bit of a conversation there, and I was telling him that we had built a new building at the time. So I was like, man, when you guys have a chance, you guys should come see it. It's awesome. So we kind of we're talking there a little bit, and then finally this guy returns, and he returns with the captain of Marlin Security. So I'm like, what is this guy doing? So he goes and he tells the Marlin security, the head of security, hey, this kid has a letter that he wrote about Jose Fernandez and he wants to read it to his mother. I was shocked. I was like, I really did not expect this guy to go out of his way, find the head of security for the Marlins, and tell him about the letter. I didn't expect that, because I didn't even know him. Like I was just a random guy I was talking to. So Marlin's head of security goes to me and tells me, read me the letter. So I read him the letter, and guys, this is the hard part for me. Like I still can't believe to this day that it happened. Like it's just crazy. Marlin's head of security took me, grabbed me by the arm, and took me to where Jose Fernandez's mother was and all of the family. And he goes, Miss Fernandez, or Maritza, that's her name. This boy has an amazing letter about your son, and he would like to read it to you. So I talked to her in English. I'm like, hey, I have a letter. Your son was my favorite baseball player, and he inspired me, this and that. But I saw that she wasn't really comprehending that well. And then I realized she only speaks Spanish. So I say it in Spanish. Look, I say it in Spanish. I'm going to say it in English, but I said it in Spanish. I'm like, look, I speak fluent Spanish too. If you want, I can redo the letter in Spanish. So guys, for the very first time, only a couple of people have heard this letter. Only a couple. My parents, a couple of my friends, my teachers, or a couple of my teachers, and the mother of Jose Fernandez. And for the first time ever, I'm going to read you guys the letter I wrote to Jose Fernandez. Alright guys, so I'm going to read it to you guys in English. I read it to Jose Fernandez's mom in Spanish, but I'm going to read it in English because it's typed in English. So alright guys, here we go. Jose, you were a hero to me. You inspired me to go through life the way that you played baseball, with happiness and joy. I remember the first time I saw you pitch. It was in 2013, your Rookie of the Year season against the Cleveland Indians. You had 14 strikeouts and the Marlins won 10-0. After that game, I knew you were my favorite baseball player of all time, because not even Miguel Cabrera, the player who was my favorite before you, played the game with such a positive attitude. I would continue to watch you play and go on to become the most dominant pitcher in the game. This year I went to the Marlins final spring training game at Marlins Park, and I had the opportunity to buy a base from that day's game. Instead, I decided to buy a base from Friday's game because you had struck out Alex Rodriguez twice. I would watch games where you would throw a shutout and then watch the bullpen throw the game away, but it didn't bother you. When they came to the dugout all upset, you would just hug them and pat them on the butt saying good job. You didn't care whether you won or lost, and you never played the game like it was your job. You played the game to have fun. You were always friendly to everyone, whether they played for your own team or rival teams. I am certain 99% of the players in the MLB will say that you are the nicest guy they have ever met, although the Philly fanatic might say otherwise. You brought the people of Miami, most notably the Cuban community, together every single time you stepped on the mound at Marlins Park. Whenever my father would buy tickets, Marlins tickets, the first thing I would ask, before I ask about where we're sitting or who we're playing against, I would ask, is Jose pitching that day? I remember the first time I met you at winter warm-ups in 2014, I asked you to sign my bobblehead, and I told you you're my favorite player of all time. You told me that you were humbled and signed my bobblehead. I shook your hand and went running to my father and grandfather, as happy as can be, exclaiming, I met Jose, I met Jose, he signed my bobblehead. That was one of the happiest moments of my life. I was able to meet my favorite baseball player of all time. The next time I saw you was in spring training of this year. I saw you and you recognized me. You said, hey, you were the kid with the bobblehead a few years back. I remember you were so happy to see me. I said, yes, I'm your biggest fan. And he signed my Marlins Ball of Fame, a ball signed by the greatest players to ever wear a Marlins uniform. Later that evening, I sat behind you and Barry Bonds watching the game. We had a short conversation. I asked you how your arm was feeling, and if you felt strong going into the season. You said you were feeling a lot better, and thanked me for asking about your health. I could not believe I was sitting there having a conversation with my favorite player while watching the game we both loved. Unfortunately, this would be the last time I saw you in person. Miami has had many great athletes, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Dan Marino, but I can safely say that you were the greatest athlete Miami's ever had. Because yes, Marino, Wade, and LeBron were all great, and none of them were able to bring Miami together as you did, and none of them were able to bring Miami together as you did, and none of them played the game with the charisma and passion that you did. I love you, Jose, and all of Miami loves you. We will miss you. Rest in peace. Sorry guys, that was the story of how I met Jose Fernandez's mother. I have another story, but we're going to save that one for a later date. But yeah, sorry for the sad video, but I just felt like I had to tell the story. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.